Chimera has become somewhat of a catch-all term in modern language. It's a sort of creature in fiction that is a mix of different parts of animals, and then of course there are genetic chimeras, which are animals that are made up of two genetically different kinds of tissue. This can be cultivated, but there are cases where this can occur naturally. Today though, we will be discussing the OG chimera, the one in Greek mythology. The original chimera is seen in the story of Bellerophon, one of my favourite Greek heroes by the way. So, the chimera lived in Lycia in what is now modern-day Turkey. Being the offspring of Typhon and Echidna, you can imagine that this thing was a monster. And you'd be correct in your assumption. The chimera is a lion with a goat's head on its back, which could, of course, breathe fire like any normal goat, and a snake for its tail. Now, there are a few different stories on who ordered Bellerophon to kill the chimera. Homer and Hesiod agree that it was Aerysidaris, but Apollodorus disagrees, stating that it was Iobates. Whatever the case, most stories agree that Bellerophon was not sent to kill the chimera as they wanted her dead, but instead they wanted to put an end to Bellerophon himself. Bellerophon, of course, overcomes the beast by flying high above her where her flames can't reach, and raining arrows down on her from above while sitting on the back of Pegasus. Now that we know what she was and what she did, we will ask where she came from. Some of our earliest known pieces of work in which she appears are from Corinth, around the 7th century BCE, in pottery no less. At the same time, or maybe just slightly later, an Attic Greek tradition formed, in which the chimera is seen fighting Bellerophon in stories. These two happened almost simultaneously and in different parts of Greece, being Attica and Corinth. This has led some to posit that the chimera is even older and she originates in a single story predating both Attic and Corinthian art of her. One possible candidate from this comes from Carchemish, a city now in Syria, but once important to the Neo-Hittites. However, this version had wings, and instead of a goat's head, it had a human head on its back. The chimera has had so big of an influence that I'm only going to talk about either the most important or the most accurate ones. So the obvious one is the one I spoke about earlier in biology, where two genetically distinct beings fuse. There are people with this condition who have one half of their body has one set of DNA and the other half has a completely different set of DNA. Lydia Fairchild is one such person with this unusual condition, and she nearly lost 3 of her kids because of it. This is because a maternity test failed to prove her children were hers. This is because the area the sample was taken from for the test, her skin and her hair, did not match the DNA of her reproductive organs. So the DNA test did not show a match. In pop culture, we see chimeras in Power Rangers, a ton of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Godzilla villains. It served as a meal in Once Upon a Time. It's in Mission Impossible 2. A pharma company creates a virus called Chimera just to sell a cure called Bellerophon.
Nice.
They appear in almost every Final Fantasy game, as do most things in mythology. I'm sick of talking about Final Fantasy on here. There's surprisingly no Fate, actually, as far as I could tell, which is quite a surprise. Not that I've played Final Fantasy and watched Fate. I'm gonna watch Fate, though. And my mate's going to be my guide. Anyway. There's one as an obstacle in Resident Evil 4. They appear in Shining Force, the Warcraft franchise, God of War, Dungeons and Dragons. A metric ton of books, including things like Star Wars and Harry Potter, which have become very popular in modern culture if you didn't already know. Literally, chimeras are in everything. Anyway guys, I hope you liked the video. If you did, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, and check out my socials in the description along with my YouTube if you're on TIL and my TIL if you're on YouTube. And as always, I will see you next week, babies.